They're slammed out here right now.
Yeah, we're busy from it, which is unusual for December.
Yeah.
Really unusual for December.
Is it legit repairs, or is it people just coming in for services?
Yeah, no, quite a few people repairs. And what I have noticed now, we're sort of maturing a little bit. We've been on the radar for a few years. We've been open now 4 years. People are starting to book in.
Okay.
So they're calling and saying, they were busy last time I went in, I'm going to book. And they're booking in, which is good, because then you get to have that conversation with them of, just the services, is there anything else? Oh, well, actually, yeah, I've had this and that. And you can make sure that you pick up. Whereas when people were just dropping in, they'd invariably chance it on the way to work, and they'd say, I've got a bit of a noise from the back. And we say, could you drive it with us? No, my taxi's here, I need to get to work. We don't get to replicate the issue with them, and it can make things quite difficult. So that's been a noticeable change. And considering we've got a reduced car pool size, the actual number of cars that we can work on went down after the floods. So many of them were written off, and so many of those people replaced them with new cars. And used cars don't appear.
Right.
They were there or they weren't. So if they replaced them with a used car, that was just someone else's used car. So they've replaced a lot of them with new cars. The amount of Chinese cars here that are on it's
extraordinary.
Like it's a good deal.
It is extraordinary, the number of Chinese cars.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I look around and I constantly just say, wow. And some of them look pretty sexy. Some of them, I wonder about the longevity. We've had this discussion before.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, yesterday at Auto Mechanica, me and Pete had a bit of a shopping list yesterday when we went there for a couple of things that we're working on. And so we were looking for suppliers for certain things. And Pete obviously meets with their existing suppliers from Borg & Beck and tries to make contacts for any new lines they want to introduce. Borg & Beck are, rather than going at everything, they try to be the best at what they do. So
Borg & Beck, for anyone who's out there driving, are after-sale parts folks. So brake pads, wiper blades,
service and wear parts,
and other things that are probably exceed in most cases the part already on your vehicle from the manufacturer.
Yeah, that's what they try to do
in standards.
Yeah, I mean they're not the broadest range. They won't have everything you need, like let's say something like a Brit part or something like that, where you could pretty much get anything for a Land Rover. They're not doing pressurized caps for coolant systems, and they're not doing oil seals and gaskets and exhaust components and that sort of stuff. But what they do, they try to make sure is as good as, or if not better than, the original. But they still have to introduce new parts, and new cars come on the line. But talking to the suppliers, and a lot of the factories are Chinese, and we were asking them, do you have parts? Do you produce parts for the Chinese manufactured cars? So the ones that aren't in collaboration with another manufacturer like VW or Volvo that are using their parts, do you produce the parts? And they didn't.
What?
They don't produce them.
The Chinese manufacturers of parts aren't doing Chinese vehicles.
Yeah. So they were just saying it's the vehicle manufacturing plants that turned into vehicle manufacturing plants, but were already making parts. They just added building the whole car to their resume, if you like. And one lady was telling me that in China they have, in some of the big industrialized cities, they have some factories which will just do dashboards. And then they'll have a factory that just does seats, and they'll have a factory that just does doors and bonnets and boots and roofs and like that. And then they just all grew into, well, we'll just put a whole car together. And that's why there's so many different car makes coming out of China. I mean, it's a huge place, obviously, and it's a fifth of the world's population. Maybe.
And they're obviously hoping they can tap their own market.
Yeah, but the parts manufacturers aren't the traditional, shall we say, parts manufacturers that are possibly making OE parts for Volkswagen Group and Volvo, as we've said, and other parts. They're not making them for the JACs and the JMCs and the Geelys and the BAICs and all those. Yeah. They're not making them for them because.
So we've got folks right now who are driving these Chinese cars, and they're enjoying it. They're laughing. They're saying, "Hey, you know what? I got great quality. I didn't spend as much as I could have spent if I went for one of the big 8 manufacturers."
Yeah.
But if they need parts, hopefully, where they bought the vehicle from, hopefully those dealers, big BYD dealer on Shakeside Road, hopefully their service center has the parts to fix their cars.
Yeah, I mean, and this is anecdotal because it's only us. We don't represent the whole world, obviously. We don't represent the whole market here. But we really struggle to get parts for the Chinese marques. Really, really struggle. And a lot of the times we've had certain cars where the dealerships have closed. These cars are so cheap, and it's sort of like, it's one of those situations where you step back and think about it. You're buying a car, which is great value for money. That's fine. You have to remember, if it's good value for you, that means there's less margin in it for the person you're buying it from. So they've got to sell more. But they're not. There's still more Nissans on the road than Xpengs.
Yeah.
Regardless of the value of an Xpeng, value for money, which is, and these are new startup companies. They're not going to start up with 10 million dirhams worth of stock of parts, and those parts don't exist anyway because it's only the vehicle manufacturer that's making them. From my conversations yesterday, and maybe the manufacturers of parts for Chinese vehicles aren't interested in this market yet, and that's why they weren't here. But from what I saw yesterday, and I was surprised to start with, but a lot of them just sort of looked as if I was, had something hanging out of my mouth. It's just one of those situations.
Yeah.
But you've got a massive, massive problem when you can't supply your own vehicles their parts.
Yeah. No, huge one. Interesting. Oh, there we go. Alibaba. Is Alibaba not tapped into the Chinese car part?
They're into everything, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are into everything, but obviously they're finding them from
wherever.
But for somebody like me, let's say I wanted to start my own parts company. I've got no reason to do that. But let's say I wanted to start my own parts company. If I was going to do it based on what I did yesterday, well, my opinion would be I'm not going to supply parts for Chinese cars because I can't get them.
Yeah.
I just can't get them. And that is what the problem of owning a Chinese car is at the moment.
One's got to think very carefully. And unfortunately, I think most people just look at the sticker price and say, oh, can I get financing? Can I walk away with this thing? You know what? I don't need financing because I can make this work. I'm not going to be able to get it fixed.
The problem is as well, what do you do with it after 3 years?
Well, I think they're disposable cars. I think they're disposable at that point.
This is a lot. This is where the problems really are, in my opinion, where we all know about the environmental issues of producing steel and rubber and plastic and everything else.
The batteries.
The stringent sort of regulations that we have in Europe, North America, that makes manufacturing so expensive, that helps keep manufacturing cheap in China, for example. But then they're producing these things at a cost to the environment. After 5 years, they have to be scrapped.
Yeah.
And if that turns out to be the case, well, surely that adds to the total overall footprint of the car. And yeah, it doesn't look good. We do see the odd Chinese car come in now. A lot of them are getting to an age. We have a couple of Borg Wards, got some Geelys, and we can't ever get the parts for them.
So what do you do? Can you
Wait
modify
for the dealer.
stuff?
One of the cars we had. It was a Geely.
I thought Geelys were Sri Lankan.
X7, M Grand X7 or whatever it was. And it came in for a service, and we did a report on it, and the parts weren't available. The customer said, okay, well, I'll do it at the next service. And then something happened in about the 3-4 weeks later that it came back for, might have been the battery died or something on it. And we needed the battery died on it. We needed a terminal.
Okay.
Where it just corroded through the pole.
Yeah. Well, that shouldn't happen.
The same dealer that had quoted us on the parts for the service report last time, 3-4 weeks ago, didn't exist anymore.
No.
And we got a message back saying contact such as, I think he told us to contact someone at Union or something like that.
Wow.
And that's in the space of a month.
Yeah.
So like I say, it's anecdotal and it's only our experience, but people can ask us advice. We can only give our own experience, and it becomes a real issue. But then again, all the trouble VW are having.
Yep.
We're not be able to get parts for them soon.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It's been a bad time, and now obviously we're about to see a massive price hike because all of these targets for EV sales for the European manufacturers, what they're doing is they're just refusing to deliver cars.
Right.